Hi everybody. I want to talk about an issue that comes up sometimes within churches and Christians that are not really fully aware of what they're talking about. And we'll talk about expository preaching or expository teaching. Now, I am all for expository teaching and preaching. It should be the bread and butter over all of how we train our people. However, that does not necessarily mean that when a pastor or teacher goes through a English version and calls out the English word and then defines every word by saying, I know the Greek underlying it. That would be to undermine all those great teachers and translators who spent hours and hours poring over every line to faithfully translate it, either at a one-to-one correspondence in the more rigid versions like ESV, Holman Christian Standard, New American Standard, which are excellent study Bibles for theology, versus all those that try to make it much more attainable to a person trying to read through the Bible to get the narrative in the story, like Eugene Peterson, who was under one of the greatest expository preachers ever, and wrote this Bible in response to a need he saw in the people, and not recognizing the purpose of that way of giving the Bible to people. I want to share with you too, it's not simply that you go, oh, I know the Greek word, and I can say, oh, diakos, or justification. Because in Romans chapter 1, verse 17, it says, the just shall live by faith. And if you just read that and translated the Greek to English, you would miss out on why people struggle, because the struggle does not come from the Greek text, doesn't come from the English text. The struggle comes from the Latin Vulgate, where the word for justification was justificare, which is two words, where it came from Roman law. It came from the idea that the justification comes by acts, and the Romans understood it to be, well, by getting the act of the Lord's Supper, by getting the act of baptism, by doing these things, God then makes you just. So it is a fiduciary obligation you have to God to get his righteousness. But the Greek word for justification there means to declare one righteousness. It's a passive act, and it comes to you as an alien application whereby God, through decree, legally justifies you, not because of what you've done, but because he is the judge. Now, to miss out on explaining something that's not in the text, that came from outside the text, but still permeates people's thinking about justification, while it would still be considered expository preaching, really would not help people further their struggle in grasping why we struggle in Christianity today in understanding justification properly. It's not that exposing and drawing the text out alone, it's that there's an underlying current that was there for thousands of years that still has ripples in people's minds of why they struggle with justification by faith. And so that's my concern, is that some people think expository preaching is simply defining words that are there in the text without comparing and contrasting theology and struggles people have had throughout years with reading the Bible. I hope that you would read the Bible to its fullness, that you would trust good, solid translations, and even ones that are more dynamic if you're simply looking to read through the stories like Esther and the Old Testament to get the narratives quickly, and then go back and study the areas for deeper theological study where there are questions raised, and you need to build a biblical theology based upon many verses and going back to a more one-to-one correspondence. But I hope that you would examine that our theology in the Bible has been informed by many sources, and just giving definitions alone as a dictionary without giving the context of the history where that Bible was written, when it was written, and the history of where we struggle as Christians, is just as important in the whole process of preaching the gospel, reading the Bible, and growing your faith in Christ. God bless you.